Thanks for sending these. Wow, really good golf swing. We're just going to clean up some things, but this should be fairly simple for you. So the guy on the right, his name is Mac O'Grady. So he's sort of Yoda when it comes to golf instruction. Everyone in golf instruction um, reveres this guy. So he's who we're going to use today and who we're going to look at today. So the first thing I want to look at is, and you mentioned, you're struggling with some thin shots and missing it left. So I want to start by looking at just setup, like you mentioned, with your left wrist. Obviously, you can see here from Mac's, left shoulder, through his left arm, through his left wrist, through the shaft, kind of lines up in a nice straight line. So he's ready to compress this iron. Where if we look at your left wrist, it's in a golf terms strong position, but from a striking perspective, it's in a weak position. So you're kind of preset to kind of scoop this thing a little bit. So that's the first thing, just getting that left wrist in alignment, getting things set up a little bit more strong from a striking viewpoint. So I'll go ahead and clear these lines. Okay, so the first thing I want to look at is, Mac, ball position, roughly off his left ear. You as well. In a good spot there. Now I'm going to roll you back. Pretty good spot there. You can tell you're a good player. I'm going to roll Mac back. Okay, so pretty good spots. I'd say that your right arm looks a little wide, a little rigid up there. Maybe we could wind up a little differently, wind up a little better. Mac's pelvis is in a little bit different position. You can see his right hip's more turned, sort of back and around in this direction, which allows him to support the leverage up top a little bit better. And it's going to do some things that help him coming down. So in the second part of this, I'll talk on camera and give you some sort of cues and some things to feel. But for right now, just kind of pointing out, where I'm looking. So, Mac's in a better place here to attack a little bit more in this direction. So he's already set up there at setup with his left arm, and then he's in a better spot here to sort of attack the golf ball. So we'll play around with that in part two. Okay, now here's where I want to introduce you to what we'll be focusing on in terms of your body movement. So we'll get you wound up a little better. I mean, it's going to be, really easy for you. You've got such a great foundation, but I want to talk about moving down into impact. So if you watch this, okay, so let's say almost club parallel to the ground. Okay. So now I want to show you how we're going to get a little more consistent. So in your golf swing, you're well up off your right foot, okay? And the right knee's kind of kicking in toward the ball a little bit. And so your hips are well out in front of your upper body. And so this causes some secondary, spinal tilt to the right, and might be the reason why you're not quite compressing it and you're hitting some thin shots. So what I'm looking at here is, I'll clear these lines. The upper center of gravity being your sternum. So look at the buttons on Mac's shirt. So we'll call this upper, and we'll call the middle of the pelvis the lower center of gravity. Notice how Mac's upper and lower are stacked on top of each other here. So they're both pointing toward the face on camera. Okay? So now your hips are a bit spun out in this direction and your sternum's over here. So what that causes is you to sort of be tipped back. So the spine is pretty tipped back in this direction, and the shoulders are kind of angled this way with your hips well out in front of your upper body. So that's where the thin shots are coming from. And also, with the club this far behind you or behind your hips, it's going to cause the right hand to sort of throw or chase or flip it left post-impact, so on the front side of the arc. Okay, so you can see here how much more level Mac is. Way late. And he's still got his upper and lower centers lined up. So from that perspective, he's able to deliver it, you know, with some forward shaft lean, with some compression. And then now, his upper and lower body are going to turn together from impact to the finish, where your upper body is way more tilted back, which is, I'm assuming, going to cause a bit of a higher trajectory, and at times when your pelvis thrusts with your upper body that's tipped back, you're going to thin it. And so with your hips being that spun out for an iron shot at impact, it's going to cause right there the upper body to kind of throw on top a little bit. And now I'm nitpicking here because you've got a great move, but we're going to clean this up. So then you'll see the upper body sort of over-rotated in relation to the lower body, because everything just got pulled for you in that direction because of the fact that the club head was kind of throwing. Now if you watch Mac here, everything's turning together. Club never throws. And then he's able to fold his elbows, fold his wrists nicely to the finish. Okay, so now I want you to notice something here. The club's right in front of his pecs on this iron shot. And notice the difference in where Mac's sternum is pointing, where his pelvis is pointing, and then where your sternum is pointing, kind of over there. Pelvis is kind of down over here. So because the hips fired early from the top of the backswing, they stall out and the upper body over-rotates to the finish. So if we get you better coming down, things more together, club more in front of you, then everything will kind of rotate and move together to the finish. and it'll cause you to feel a bit more consistent. Okay, so let's look at iron down the line. I'm going to tweak this real quick. And then let's bring in I'll just use Mac again. Sorry, that one doesn't want to work. Let me snag another one. Okay, so the club gets a bit in, going back. Not too bad though. Pretty good spot there. Okay, so now kind of piggybacking off of what I talked about face on, you can see here that because of the way Mac winds up, you can see how things are angled a little bit this way, like he's going to go down after it. Right hip gets higher than the left. Rears are a touch more level here. Pretty good there. So we'll look at how we wind up the lower body a little bit better. Okay, so the hips are well out in front of the upper body, where you can see Mac's more cleanly lined up there. You know, like I showed you face on, pelvis, sternum, kind of looking in the same spot. And then your club's just a touch behind you there with your, in relation to how hard your pelvis is firing. So what that's going to cause here, the upper body starts to kind of overturn. Now the upper body's well in this direction, where Mac, boom, down and through. Everything's turning for him together. Now you'll see the thighs come together, glutes pressurize, wrists and elbows kind of fold. And so you can see how he's able to maintain this look a little bit, and his pelvis is pointing out here, and sternum matches. So it's just a little bit cleaner in terms of body movement. So we'll clean up your hands and arms a little bit. We'll clean up your body movement a little bit, just syncing up the lower and upper body, and then it should be a pretty easy, easy deal for you. So I want to just show you one more view in terms of how you wind up and create leverage to the top. So from this view, you can see how level he is, how level the pelvis is. Now watch as he winds up. Okay, now he's ready to attack this way with this iron because his right hip loaded differently, a little bit more leverage there. The right rib loaded a bit more leverage there. So his hand path is going to be more directly down to the golf ball here. Okay, so we'll get you there. That's pretty simple. Then notice here, your hips like to spin out from the top. And if we get you leveraged better, they won't want to spin out as much or that early. If you get your right hip higher than your left, you'll be able to attack down into it this way, and then everything will line up here. Okay, so look how late in the golf swing his right shoulder is still higher than his left. Where remember, your upper body was sort of tipping back while your pelvis was turning pretty aggressively. So that's where the thin shots are coming from. So watch this. He doesn't get level till clear down here. And again, everything's really clean. Center of gravity's stacked over where this golf club's going to bottom out, or the bottom of the arc. And then the pelvis, the ribs, and the shoulders all match. Okay, so he's going to be able to turn, he's going to be able to strike down and hold his turn for late in the golf swing. So that everything matches up. So just a cleaner body movement all around, clean some things up for you. And one thing I will mention is, I'm sure you have golf shoes, but a lot of this stuff is easier in, see Max wearing some real golf shoes. Those are old FootJoys. Just your relationship to the ground will be a lot better than wearing sort of a slick, cushiony tennis shoe. So it's easier to, because part of how he's able to be level so late and have everything matching is just his relationship to the ground is a lot stronger. Okay, so we'll start here. I watched your driver swing. It's similar, but your tendencies probably won't hurt you as much with the driver because you're going to hit more level or slightly up on the driver. But if you're spinning your hips out and tilting your upper body back that much with your irons, I could see how you could thin it. And with the club behind you, it causes you to sort of over-rotate to the finish. So at times, depending on, how things sequence, you've got a bit of a two-way miss going. So I appreciate you watching this part. And part 2, I'll be on camera kind of talking you through what we just saw.